Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far and welcome to today's video, which is going to be the next episode in my makeup and movies series where I'm trying some new makeup while sharing all of my thoughts on the 6 films that I saw this month at the cinema. So today I have a whole load of products from Basma Beauty to try out. I've got their foundation, bronzer and cream blush. I have the new concealer from By Terry. I've got the new mascara from Wonderskin, one of the new lipsticks from MAC, and one of the new Patrick Tar eyeshadow duos, and 6 films to tell you all of my thoughts and ratings on. We've got some perfect 10s this month and we've got an absolutely disturbing, traumatizing 4 and everything else in between. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, I'm just putting on some of my Tom Ford Soft Matte Primer because I'm trying a new foundation to me and you today. So I want to keep my primer the same so that I know what the foundation is doing and what might be a new primer as well. So I'm sticking with my usual primer. Okay, so I'm going to start off with this new Patrick Tar duo. Of course, everything will be listed down below. If I'm using something that's not new, that will also be listed down below for you. So I saw 6 films this month. I think that's becoming like my go-to number. I think 6 is a good number. It's essentially 1 a week for the month and then usually 1, maybe 2 children's films that I see at the weekend with my family. So on that note, the first film I'm going to talk about today is The Wild Robot. I loved this film so much. This was one we nearly didn't go and see this because we'd seen a trailer for it and I thought it looked great. I definitely wanted to see it. I thought my kids would really love it. My son wanted to see it, but my daughter was which is quite unusual because it's usually the other way around. She did not like the look of this robot, okay? She thought it was creepy, she didn't like it. To the extent where she didn't want to see the film because she thought it was going to be like scary, or she thought the robot was going to be scary and she wasn't going to like it. So I really had to like talk her into it. I know this is a book, quite a well-known book, but I haven't read the book and I'm not familiar with the book. So I had no idea what it was about. But from the trailer, I really didn't think it was going to be too scary. So we talked her into going, luckily, because this was such a gorgeous film. It's beautiful, both at its heart and the message and the meaning behind it and the relationships and the journey and the character development. That's right, character development of a robot and a duck as it goes. Or is it a goose? I forget. Some kind of pond dwelling bird. It's so beautiful in its storytelling, but it's also visually stunning as well. Such a beautiful animation, just absolutely visually delightful, as well as being just a gorgeous, beautiful, moving story. So this is about a robot, as you might have guessed, that gets lost. It's a very high-tech, Elon Musk-esque robot set, I guess, sometime in the future, and on its way to its new owner there is a storm and it basically gets washed up on an island that is only inhabited by animals, and this robot is designed to sort of do all of your jobs around the house for you. You're supposed to set it tasks, and when it's finished its task it comes back to you for like your next task, and that's how it's supposed to work. Very, very advanced, high-tech robot, but it gets lost on this island, and then because there are no humans around, it sort of learns to interact with the animals there. And due to a sort of unfortunate, or fortunate I guess, series of events, the robot sort of adopts this duckling, well, it's actually an egg, I think, when she finds it. And then when the egg hatches, this tiny baby bird thinks that the robot is its mother. So it sort of takes on mother as a task. The whole film was just gorgeous. It was beautiful, it was moving, it was funny, and it was a visual delight, and I was absolutely thrilled and so glad that we went to see it. My daughter was not scared at all. I think she just saw a robot and thought terrifying, which, to be honest, who could blame her? It did look very reminiscent to me of the iRobot robots, so it was fair dues. I mean, she hasn't seen that film, obviously, but it was fair enough that she had that initial response, but in the film she wasn't scared. It wasn't really, there were a couple of moments that were a little sad or a little scary, but my son is quite easily terrified and no one got scared, no one got upset. It was just gorgeous, a beautiful film, glorious happy ending, no traumatization. Loved it, solid 10 out of 10. Just really heartwarming, warming your cockles experience all around. So from one end of the spectrum to the very, very far distant other end, we're going to talk about The Substance. This film, Now, I definitely went in quite unprepared for this film, I will say that. I had seen the trailer, but in no way did the trailer prepare me for what my eyes were about to behold. So I'm going to give you a bit more of a fair warning about this film, because I definitely wouldn't have gone to see it if I had known what that visual experience would have been like. So the premise of this film is it follows an actress, Demi Moore. She's fantastic in this film, I have to say, and unbelievably banging body, because let me tell you, we see a lot of it. We see a lot of it closer than I've seen bits of my own body. Okay, but this film essentially follows this actress who is in Hollywood terms past her prime. She's probably, I don't know, in her 40s. I think she is about to have her 50th birthday. I think that's correct. Correct me if I'm wrong. I have, to be fair, blanked out a lot of what I saw during this film. So it's very likely that I may be remembering things slightly off because of the trauma. So she has been a huge, big star, and she has a sort of exercise show where she does like a workout with some, backing dancers. It's very 80s, okay? Very, very Mr. Motivator in female form. And she's approaching, I think, her 50th birthday, and basically her manager and the producer of the show, they're like, obviously she's too old now. She must go and never be seen in public ever again because she's outrageously old. And so she's realizing that she's sort of being dropped and that she's being seen in Hollywood as sort of expired, past her sell-by date. And then she happens upon someone by chance who gives her this very suspicious note, this very intriguing little note about this substance and how it can change her life. So this is a stranger that she sort of bumps into, and she's just given this phone number, call this number if you want to be back in your prime. And she does, and she goes to this very mysterious location, and a package is waiting for her, and in it is the substance. So this is a substance that is going to make her look her ultimate best again. She doesn't really know what she's signing up for, but she decides she's in such a desperate situation. She's so desperate to find her youth again, and she wants to give this mysterious substance a go. I mean, I get a little bit worried about taking a new brand of vitamin. I don't know about you, but I don't think this would have been for me. But fair enough, she's in this situation, and she decides she wants to give this substance a go, see what happens. She doesn't really know what it entails. There are rules attached to the substance, which essentially are that you can have, I think, is it 4 days on, 4 days off, something like that. You can be your best self for 4 days, and then you'll be back to your old, awfully aged self in 4 days, and you go back and forth, and this is what you must do. So here comes the first bit of this film that I was not visually prepared for, and that is the process of taking the substance, which I believed in my naive brain that she would be, taking a tablet or maybe giving herself an injection, and that would be about it. No, what goes on is atrocious for the eyeballs, okay? It is absolutely rancid and horrifying and graphic and close up. I'm talking gore. It is gore, but not in your typical horror film sense. Some of it is. but it's more of a medical gore, if you see what I'm getting at. So yeah, so she took the substance. It was graphic, it was close up. We saw a huge amount of bottom, really up close, like right up there. So that was something. And there was a very horrifying visual moment during the first taking of the substance. So that's what I'm going to warn you about. And I will say at the beginning of this film, this was very much two halves of an experience. So the taking of the substance was gross, okay? Oh, I'm just going to say it, I'm going to be upfront because I wish I had known this, okay? I was very ill prepared. So the taking of the substance was quite a gross, disgusting experience, but then I'd say the rest of the film, I thought the premise was really interesting and intriguing, and I loved the storyline. I thought it was very clever, very topical, and addressing, you know, the hard-hitting treatment, especially of women over a certain age, in the media in general, not just Hollywood, but I suppose especially Hollywood. And the sort of first half of the film, I was like really enjoying. It was gripping, it was intriguing, it was addressing, you know, tough topics. You sort of saw Demi's character start to, you know, hate herself, her real true self, even more than she did initially, because she was seeing herself in a different way. And it was really making her sort of hate herself even more than she did before, which is kind of the opposite of the intention of trying to look younger. You're trying to love yourself more and feel more confident. And actually it was like she was disengaging with her true self and just becoming more and more resentful. It was all great. Unfortunately, approximately, I don't even know, not even halfway, I'd say 2/3 of the way through this film, it went so severely south and it just got so silly and over the top that it became ridiculous and not in a good way. Now, I know this is like a satirical sort of horror film. However, I feel like it's just such a shame, like how south and silly it went and disgusting. It got really disgusting and gross. It fully turned my stomach, and I'm an avid horror film, thriller, psychological thrillers especially type of girl, okay? So it just felt unnecessary. The film, the idea was so clever and the first half so well done, and I wish they'd just done it more seriously and less ridiculous at the end and gross, because I feel like they just fully ruined it. I feel like they made it impossible to take it seriously, and it was just a shame. They just went way too far for me. Gross, almost unwatchable in places, became just ridiculous, and not even in a way that I found funny, just like stupid, when it was an actual real clever opportunity at covering such a great topic, and such a topic that had such a great message right there in the palm of their hands, and they just went, no, let's make it a big silly disgusting joke instead. Huge amounts of really intense up close nudity, a huge amount of gore in a slightly different way to what you might expect from like your average sort of horror or thriller. Unfortunately descended into a comical but not really funny fever dream by the end, where I just feel like it lost its messaging and the impact it could have had. Thought-provoking in the beginning, madness come the end. So I gave this a 4. And at some point, this was probably a 7 or an 8, but it just went from like the halfway mark, it just lost mark after mark, because it, like I said, felt like I'm imagining this can't really be happening. This can't be the direction this film took, but it was, and it wasn't for me. Next up, we saw Transformers 1, again, a family affair. Took my whole family to this. This was a mixed one, you know, with the wild robot, we all loved it. Myself, my husband, my son, my daughter. My son is 8 and my daughter is 10 for reference. Now, this was a bit more divisive. My son came out of this, he absolutely loved it. He gave it a straight 10. My daughter, I think she gave it like a 7. My husband kind of liked it. I kind of agreed with my daughter. It's not my favorite style of animation, this, and I am not a huge Transformers fan. I have seen the first live action Transformers, and I think that's pretty much it for my Transformers education. I did find the story easy to follow because this was like a prequel to the one I'd seen, so I did sort of know, I found it easy to follow what was going on. I liked the story. I found it quite slow in places for what is essentially, you know, like a children's film, I suppose. It felt quite slow in places, and I wish it was funnier. When it, you know, I've always found that like the Transformers themselves in the films, they're funny. You know, they have a lot of character, funny lines and misunderstandings about stuff. And I really enjoy that sort of dry humour that they have. And there just wasn't enough of it for me. I wish they'd made this funny. I wish there was more humour in it. And yeah, it definitely dragged in a couple of places. Very, very cool for 8-year-old boys. Okay, my son loved it. Like I said, he enjoyed it the most out of all of us. So I guess the target audience, they absolutely smashed it. It's just, I'm not the target audience. I kind of, as a parent, you know, taking my children to see it, it was okay, but it was no Wild Robot. Okay, I'll tell you that for nothing. So I'm giving this a 7. Kind of, you know, my daughter and my marks were the same. My son's was a little higher. He loved it, but for me personally, not funny enough and a little slow. You got to put the humour in there for the parents, you know. This foundation and bronzer, by the way, looks gorgeous. Very impressed with Basma so far. So next we're moving to a film that is abso-flipping-lutely right up my street. You know how excited I was to see this. Let's talk about Smile 2. I flipping loved Smile 1. One of my favourite scary type of films that I've seen in a long time. My sweet spot when it comes to scary films. I'm not like a Scream, the Terrifier kind of girl. I don't want blood, guts, gore, and just a load of murders. I want a really interesting storyline, something going on. You know, a psychological thriller is much more up my street than your typical horror. And I feel like the Smile films definitely sort of, I guess they classify them as horror, but they do have that psychological thriller element to them, that there's, you know, a real storyline going on here and not just, you know, there's a crazed killer on the loose. So first things first, if you haven't seen the original Smile, I would not say that is a necessity. This definitely works as a standalone film. So don't worry if you haven't seen the original, although I think it's on Netflix now, so it would be easy to, but you definitely don't need to have seen the first one to understand the second one. Now, I am quite used to now, I'm quite adapted to seeing scary films at the cinema by myself. I've done it many times now and it's always been fine. This film, I was about 30 seconds in to this film and thinking, I have made a terrible mistake. I have vastly over-exaggerated how competent I am at this level of terror on my own in the cinema with strangers. And also, it's like my cinema made the settings of watching this film as terrifying as possible, because they were like refurbing half of the screen, right? And there was hardly anyone in the screen, and it was the biggest screen in the place, so it was massive pitch black space. And to the right of me, the entire that half of the screen was like taped off, like there was a leak or something. I don't know, they were fixing the seats, I don't know what they were doing, but they taped it off with this sort of fluorescent like crime scene tape, right? And that whole section was just in pitch black to the right of me. And a couple of times, like the tape sort of caught my eye, like a twinkle, like or the light from the projector caught my eye off of the tape, and it nearly killed me, okay? I just saw like a movement to the right, and I'd look, and at one point I even looked with the chair and the tape. I was like convincing myself a person was sat there. I nearly had a heart attack, and that wasn't even anything to do with the film. It's like the cinema set me up for failure. But a good few minutes in, I thought, oh dear, I was in fact not ready to see this film at the cinema by myself. It's the scariest film I've seen in a long time, as was the original Smile. So if you don't know the storyline behind Smile, what it is that there is a sort of let's call it like a virus or an affliction that is in effect. And you contract this condition by seeing someone who already has it take their own life. So in the first one, the main character, she is a psychiatrist, and one of her patients comes in and tells her that she's seeing people like smiling at her all the time that aren't really there, and she thinks it's like a demon or something that is like smiling at her. During this session, the patient becomes very distressed and she takes her own life in front of the psychiatrist, and then she stands there doing the world's creepiest, most spine-chilling smile at this psychiatrist. And now that means the psychiatrist now has the virus, or whatever you want to call it, the affliction of seeing people smiling at her and all these terrifying events. Once you've seen someone take their own life who has the smile plague, you have like a week until it happens to you, until you take your own life, and it goes on like that. So in both films, in the first one and in this second one, it is a singer who she has an injury and she's going to like a drug dealer to get painkillers that will help her continue to like perform because she's going on tour. And that's where she becomes riddled with the smile disease. I don't know if I'm describing this well at all, but I'm trying not to give too much away, you know? So the main character here is Naomi Scott. She was phenomenal because it's more or less like a one-man show, these films. They have sort of one main character that does the vast majority of the acting, and she was phenomenal. Not an actress I'm hugely familiar with, but she smashed it. She was amazing. Absolutely fantastic. I loved her in this. I thought she played it brilliantly. It was jam-packed full, non-stop jump scares, tension, terror, but with a really intriguing, you know, arc to the story, which is what I love about these films. I absolutely loved it, even though I lost at least 10 years of my life. I flipping loved it. The hair on the back of my neck was constantly standing up. I swear my heart rate was a good 30 beats above resting the entire film. Loved it. Really stood up to the first one. No disappointment had by me at all. Just as good. Loved it. Was completely different as well, which I enjoyed. You know, it took quite a different sort of direction and curve to the original, which I loved. You know, definitely don't feel like you're watching the same film all over again. Completely different storyline. Still just as good. As a big fan of the original, this was an absolute win for me. Straight 10 out of 10. Loved it. Next up, again, another film right up my street. This was Heretic. This was another one that I was really excited about. So this stars Hugh Grant, who I have to say, I believe has fully wasted his life in like Notting Hill, Love Actually, rom-com type of roles, because I can't remember the name of the film I saw recently. One of you will be able to tell me. A year or two ago, I saw a film with Hugh Grant in it, and I feel like he was with Nicole Kidman, but that might not be correct. I can't remember the female role. But he basically played a husband or a partner, and it was, you know, he was a very terrifying, evil person. But you didn't know that until like the very end. I can't remember the name of this film and I can't find it. I feel like I dreamt it, but I didn't. And I remember thinking at the time, oh my God, I did not know Hugh Grant could play that kind of character, that dark, terrifying, like psychotic character that came out of nowhere. And he played it so well. And I just sort of thought, I feel like he's wasted his life. This is what he should have been doing, because he's phenomenal at these terrifying, creepy characters, and this was just more of that absolute juicy acting chops that I flipping loved. He plays terrifying weirdo unbelievably okay. So Heretic was another film that I've been really excited to see since having seen a couple of trailers for it beforehand. So the premise of this film, so there are these two young women who are on their like church mission. So I'd say they're like 18 to 21, something like that. They're on their church mission, so they are going around as a duo to people's homes and like in the street, trying to convert people to their faith, to their religion. And they come across Hugh Grant's character. So everything starts off normal, and then after a while they are having this conversation with him about their religion. They're discussing, you know, deep sort of religious questions and their different viewpoints on it. And it transpires that he's like a scholar who studies religions. So he knows a lot about their religion, he knows a lot about other religions, and so they're like, oh wow, this is the perfect person to basically convince that our religion is, you know, the one that he should sign up to. And it all starts off fine, and then after a little while he starts to give them some red flags essentially, and he starts to make them a little nervous, and it all goes downhill from there. Now, I don't want to say much really at all about this film because it's hard for me to sort of talk much about what happens, what goes on, other than what I've already said. I don't want to give anything away that wasn't sort of in the trailer that, you know, you aren't supposed to know prior to watching the film. But I loved the premise of this. I thought it was such a clever storyline, so clever, so thought-provoking. The one thing I felt about it, I don't know how long this film was. Let me look it up. So it's about an hour and 40 minutes. So not super short, but not long either. It felt like it just flew by. And the one complaint I have about this film is the sort of build up to like the main events, like the kind of setting of the scene and the initial sort of laying down of what's going on here, what's going to happen, who is this man, what is he up to. That bit, while it was really, really good and I loved it, very tense, building those sort of little doubts trickling in, really cleverly done, very atmospheric, beautifully done. That bit was like so much longer and in-depth and interesting than the actual events once they started. Felt like it was much too short. It felt like we had all this build up and then it was just like this sort of short little bit of the actual events. So yeah, I felt like the main juice, the main bit that we were waiting for the whole film was too short. I wanted more. I felt like we built up to what's going on here, what's the truth, what is happening, who is this man, what is he up to? And then the sort of the truth of everything that was going on and what was happening and why were these women here was very short and rushed. It felt like I just felt like I was missing something. I wanted more of it. It was so clever, but I did come out feeling like slightly like shortchanged on the actual happenings. I'm trying so hard not to give anything away, but it was good. I really enjoyed it. I'm giving it a 9 because I just wish that the build up wasn't more interesting than the arrival, if that makes sense. And the final film I saw this month is Juror No. 2. Now, I don't know about you, but I knew nothing about this film. I hadn't seen a trailer for it until I think it was during Heretic when I saw the trailer. Literally like a few days before this came out. I hadn't heard anything about it. I hadn't seen a trailer. I knew nothing about it. I went to see Heretic and I saw the trailer for Juror No. 2, and thank flipping goodness. The trailer tells us that this man is requested to go on jury duty. When he arrives at the court, he's told about the case, and the case is about a man who is accused of murdering his girlfriend. And as Juror No. 2 is listening to the background of the case, what happened, the date that it happened, where it happened, he realizes that he knows what happened that night, and is in this horrific position where he is a juror on the case, the very case that he knows what happened, and he can't say anything. I watched this trailer and I was like, I'm sorry. Why did no one immediately call me and tell me they were making this film? Because this is the exact kind of film that is like my all-time favorite. Psychological thrillers, twists and turns, such an interesting, original, gripping storyline, and a really flipping stellar cast as well. Nicholas Hoult, who plays the juror number 2, was outstanding. I haven't seen him in a film for far too long. He very much showed us what he was made of during this film. He was outstanding. Really thought-provoking, moral dilemma non-stop. Really had you thinking, what would you do in this situation? What is the right thing to do in this situation? What is the right outcome? The fair, true, just, moral outcome here. So clever. Absolutely loved it. I'm giving this a 9. It was very, very close to a 10. I might even say a 9.5. The mark off is solely about the ending. I, in my mind, saw it going a slightly different way, and I preferred my way. I know I'm obviously biased, but I felt like the ending was just slightly not what I wanted, and the very ending slightly irritating. It was slightly unfinished, if you know what I'm saying. I like things to be very clean, very tidy, and so therefore that's a mark off for me, but an absolute must-see. Loved it. Okay, so here is my finished face of makeup today. Close-up of the Patrick Tar Duo. I really like this one. I feel like it's really flattering on my eye colour. I really feel like it's making my eye colour pop, which I love. The shimmer is beautiful. I love that I'm able to do like a full look with just this duo, and I don't feel like I'm missing anything or need anything. I think it's super pretty. Perfect for a night out. I can't wait to use the other one. I haven't even used the other one that I picked up yet. Next, let's chat about these Basma Beauty products. So the foundation stick, I used shade number 26 for reference. I love this packaging, so pretty and fun. The foundation went on gorgeously. It's got a really nice sort of medium buildable to full coverage, really flattering, went, you know, onto texture and lines beautifully, got a gorgeous, very natural sort of satin finish to it, looks super pretty. The one complaint I have about it, it blended in easily as well as you saw with my brush, gorgeous. The one complaint I have is it's a very small, this is a teeny tiny stick. And so I feel like it was quite time consuming to get enough product on my face. This is much smaller than the other foundation sticks I'm used to, like the Dior or the Tom Ford one is quite ginormous. This is very small, so I feel like I was there for about half an hour trying to, you know, colour in my face. So I do wish that it was larger surface size so we could just be a bit quicker, but then it's ideal if you want to use it as well as concealer and spot concealing. So, you know, that's just a personal preference, the way I used it today. The bronzer, I think, is gorgeous. So I have the shade 10. It's warm as it is a bronzer, but it's not orange. It's a nice natural shade, warmed up the skin, melted in and blended away so beautifully. I went back and added a bit more because it blended so easily, so beautifully, but I was really impressed with that. And actually the size, which is the same as the foundation shade that I used today for the bronzer, works really nicely because you could really sculpt with that. Blended like a dream, beautiful tone, gorgeous. And then the cream blush. So I have the shade Peach, of course, they know me well. I immediately have to show you how this opens because I think it's so cool. So this is the cream blush. You push it up and your product is there underneath. I love that. I feel like that's really inclusive. You know, I can do it one-handed. It's very easy to do if you struggle to open things, which I know a lot of people, when it's fiddly and you can't sort of, you don't want to break a nail trying to prise it open. That is genius. More brands, please pay attention. That is amazing. The shade is just perfect. It's not so peachy. It's like a very natural peach, you know, sort of a more neutral leaning peach. Really pretty. I haven't got highlighter on today, but it's given me a gorgeous glow to my cheeks. I think that's beautiful. I'm really impressed by all of these products from Basma. Love the ethos behind the brand. Very inclusive products. Love it. Let's talk about the By Terry concealer. So I have been using this for a good few days now. I think I've used this 4 or 5 times. I was actually gifted this by Space NK. You know, just as a regular member of Space NK website, they send products out for you to review on their website so they can get reviews going. And I really like this. It has more coverage than I expected. It's got a nice shade. I had the shade 7, which I found a nice brightening shade for me under the eyes. It's not quite as high coverage as my House Labs, and I feel like it slightly creases. Not terribly, but slightly, but it feels very lightweight and hydrating and comfortable under my eyes. So if you have a drier skin type than mine, or you're really just wanting something quite hydrating with great coverage, this is a perfect option. It's a really nice concealer, much better than I expected it to be, and I've been happily using it. This is my first time using the Wonderskin mascara today, and it does have the wand that I like, that sort of rubberized spiky type of wand. I feel like I couldn't quite get as impactful of a lash today. I think I did like 3 or 4 coats, and I still feel like my lashes are a little lackluster in comparison to normal, but this very much feels like the type of mascara that will age well. Like, I feel like give it a few uses, because this is the first day I'm using it, and I will begin to love it. So I'm going to keep using this, and I will keep you updated in my November roundup. Now, you guys already know how I feel about the MAC Maximal Satin reformulation. I think it's gorgeous, perfect amount of color and shine. This is one of the new shades that I requested from them, which is Crème in Your Coffee. Such a perfect autumnal shade. I feel like I'm quite cool toned for me today, apart from the cheeks, but the rest of me. So I'll let you know how the foundation wears. I'm going to be testing it quite hardcore today because we have a long day, and then we are going to like a festival, like a children's sort of light festival this evening. So I'm going to be out until at least like 9. So we will see how this goes on like a good 10-hour day, and I will keep you posted. I'll keep trying all of these products, and then I will give you my full thoughts in my November beauty roundup. So the next few films on my list. So of course I'm already booked in to see Paddington with my children tomorrow as I'm filming this. I have also seen a couple of good trailers that are next on my list. First up, Companion, right up my street, psychological thriller. Don't really know a lot about what it's about. The trailer was quite sort of hinting, we don't really know what's going on here. That's definitely on my list, as is Wolfman, which looks more of a classic horror. Love the look of that. And Gladiator 2, it's on my list because it's a film that's on, and I don't think there's anything new on next week for me to see by myself. So I'll probably go and see that, although it's not really my kind of film. Red One, another one that we've seen the trailer for as a family that looks really great. We're definitely going to go and see that next after Paddington as a family film. And then We Live in Time. So I saw this trailer for the first time, I think during Juror 2. This is Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield. And again, it looks like it's going to rip my heart right out of my chest. Some kind of sort of romantic drama, not 100% sure, but I imagine one of them is dying. That's what I'm guessing from the trailer. So I do like to go and, you know, fully just rip my heart right out occasionally. So that looks beautiful. We'll definitely be going to see that as well. And then September the 5th. So this is a film about the terrorist attack at the Munich Olympic Games. So this was in 1972. I saw, again, first time I saw a trailer for this during Juror 2, and it looked really interesting, really intrigued by that. So that is my list of what I will be seeing next. So please let me know if you saw any of these films. Do you plan to see any of these films? Are they for you? What did you think? How did you get along? Please let me know all of your thoughts, as always, in the comment section down below. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I would love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye.